Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Keller here, and it's time for your next art lesson. Okay, so today we're going to be creating Collagraph prints. We're creating our Collagraph prints by taking cardboard material, thin, and creating a design on them, gluing them down, and then we overlay it with aluminum foil. We color with markers, and then we take another piece of paper, we wet it, and we take the marker print off, and we get a cool print that we have. And we can make this over and over. We can change the color of it. We can do it multiple times using the same Collagraph print. One thing, I want you to make sure you watch the whole video all the way through before you start your project. That's because I made some mistakes, and I'll talk about them at the end, and I want you to learn from them so that way you have an easier time. Also, parents, please make sure that your kids are watching this video with you. It really helps them to see the whole process all the way through and understand where they're going in order to accomplish it. So let's first get started and go over the materials that you'll need for this project.
Okay, so here's what you need. You need cardboard cut up from a box of some sort. It should be the thinner cardboard, like a cereal box cardboard, not a thick, heavy shipping box cardboard. You need a pair of scissors, a black permanent marker. That's for marking your shapes that you're going to be cutting out. You'll also need water-based markers. Now for this project, it's really important that you use water-based markers and not permanent markers. When we color on the tin foil, which I'll show you in a little bit, you can't wash off the permanent markers. So they have to be water-based markers for this project. You will also need a piece of tin foil and white glue and a sponge. I forgot to include a sponge. So let's get started. First, we're going to draw our shapes. Now this is one I've already done and outlined. You can see I have a whole slice and then three half slices. So on that piece of cardboard, that thin cereal box cardboard, you're going to draw your 3 slices and then your circle. Once you have drawn all of those, then on the side, you're going to draw 2 lines. Now, these lines are going to be your guides for drawing your triangles, which are going to be your segments for your oranges. So I kind of measure out from the edge to the middle to figure out how big my lines should be. Then using diagonal lines, creating V's, I create my orange segments. For the smaller orange slice, it's going to be a little bit smaller, of the 2 lines are a little bit smaller, and you just do the same thing. Create your V's, and then you'll get ready to cut them out. Okay, so now we're going to start arranging our pieces, and then I'm going to lay out my triangles and I'm going to glue them down onto my shapes. So starting with my full slice, I take my larger triangles and I place them in the order that I want them to go, as they would with segments. If I have extras, it's okay. If I need more, I just need to cut a few extras. No big deal. Position them, get them all laid out, and then you glue them down. One thing you may find is that as you're positioning things, they might not quite fit right, so just trim a little edge off of it if it needs to fit better. and glue. So once you have them all glued down, then you're going to need to figure out how you want them arranged on your cardboard piece and glue them down there. Now take your glued piece and set it aside so that it can dry.
So now once your piece is dry, you're going to be ready to lay the aluminum foil over it and color it. So before you do that, if you're doing the citrus piece, one good way of coloring it is to use complementary colors. Complementary colors means that they're across from each other on the color wheel. So green is across from red, yellow is across from purple. So red and green are complementary, yellow and purple are complementary, and orange and blue are complementary. So those can be nice combinations when you're doing citrus. So if you're doing a lemon, maybe put a purple background to it. So once you've wrapped your piece in aluminum foil, you want to begin to color it. I am making this a lemon, so I'm coloring my whole piece in yellow for my whole slice, and then I color my wedges also yellow. For this one, I'm only doing a solid yellow. I'm not adding any other colors. But in my next example, I'll show you how I can add some different colors and it adds more variation. So my lemons will be yellow and my background will be purple. So when your piece is all colored, you want to take your white piece of paper and you want to wet it with your sponge. Now your sponge should be damp, not sopping wet, but also it needs to have enough moisture to wet the paper. I'm folding this in half because I'm going to do two different complementary color schemes on this one. So I'm folding it in half, I'm rubbing the one half that I'm going to print with my wet sponge. And I will talk more about the wetness of the sponge when I get to the mistakes that I made. Now take your paper and lay it over top of your print. Press down firmly, and without moving one hand, you want to rub it in. You want to rub all the areas with your fingers so that you can kind of see the impression of the image that you're printing. Take your time with this. Try not to bump the paper. I did that several times and it just happens. It doesn't really ruin the print, but you want to try to be careful about that. So just take your time with it and press down and rub the entire print. Lift the print, there you have it. Now remember, this was just yellow and purple, so there's not a lot of color variation on that one. This one is going to be orange and blue. I was playing with my complementary color schemes. Now let me show you, for this one I decided to play with different colors. I'm making a lime slice, and so I used one light green in the center for the actual segments, and then I used a different green in between the segments, and then I used a darker green to outline the segments. And then my complementary color for green is red, but I decided to use red and orange together in combination for my background. Once I wet my paper, this one I did as a full page print, and I lay my print down, I then get my striking print. So now, before you get started on your own Collagraph, I want to show you some mistakes that I made in the process so that you can learn from them. So for this print, I just got it too wet. My sponge was literally sopping. From too wet
to too dry. This one's not too bad, but my sponge was probably a little drier than it should have been. This one, however, I was happy with.
You do not have to create the project that I created. I'm just giving you a guideline, a starting point. I want you to be as creative as you can be. Do you prefer butterflies? Do a butterfly. Do you prefer superheroes? Do a superhero. Do something that interests you. When you're creating a collagraph, you want to take the base and then you want to build on the base. So a head, if you're doing a superhero, would then have eyes and nose built on top of it. If you're doing a butterfly, you'd have the body of the butterfly and then the designs of the butterfly built on top of it. So the Collagraph print is going to build and layer on top. You don't want to go above probably 3 layers because it'll get too confusing when you do your print. But explore, create, and see what you come up with. Have fun with it. Okay guys, that's it for me for today. I'm looking forward to seeing what you create. I hope to be back next week with a sculpture project for you. Ooh. It's time for the Collagraph print.